Welcome to the show. I'm Sean Lang. I've spent the last several years building and operating a digital agency that's grown past 50 people, which has shaped how I think about the decisions that start to matter once things start to get complex. Today, I'm joined by Ryan Burch, founder of the Tobie Group. Now, the Tobie Group is a Phoenix-based marketing agency that delivers flexible, results-driven strategies focused on substance over style to drive measurable growth and ROI without all of that typical agency fluff. Ryan, it's great to have you on, man.
Hey, great to be here.
Absolutely. So let's start with your origin story. Can you tell me a bit about the Tobie Group and how it came to be?
Yeah, I got started. So we're about 6 years old. We got my background is digital advertising. So I was part of the old programmatic days. We were one of the first companies that did retargeting and kind of ran digital advertising for that organization. And then we got bought by eBay, so we got acquired by a Fortune
Cool.
at the time. I think it was like Fortune 500, Fortune 100 even at the time, and which kind of rocketed me into this role where I was managing just massive clients. I had no business managing some of the logos and stuff that were under our umbrella. And what was interesting though is after 5 or 6 years of doing that, I noticed that everybody was kind of using like this sledgehammer approach to marketing. So a client would have one very specific small problem, and they would go hire this massive agency to fix that one very specific problem. And so we started, and Toby was started because it just felt like there was a gap to be a little bit more flexible, be a little bit more nimble than the way that some of our clients, both large and small, were approaching their marketing problems. And so that was kind of the genesis of everything. And here we are 6 years later, and trying to keep delivering flexible results for our clients.
So what did the first year look like? What was like the genesis of Tobie Group?
Yeah, well, I left my role, and without a huge like, a perfect plan of what was gonna come next. I
There's no
I
such
knew that I
thing, so that's okay.
Yeah, well well, I knew that, and I had by that point, and a lot of people listening to this, you build a network, people in different roles, you go client side, go to another I was, go vendor side, go work at an agency. So we had all these different options, and for me, it was there's a lot of confusion around what I actually wanted to do next. I had been working in ad tech, and it's hard. Anybody that works in ad tech or has been in that world for any amount of time knows that it's really just challenging. And so I didn't have a great plan. And after I left, one of my previous clients came back and said, "Hey, I heard that you had left. Would you be able to do some freelance work?" For me. So I said, okay, well, let's just start there and see what happens. And that freelance project turned into another freelance project, which turned into another freelance project. And similar to other agency owners, next thing I know, I'm kind of like this accidental agency owner, right? It never was supposed to be this big organization, this large company, because it just started as me trying to give a little bit more nimble or more thoughtful approach for our clients.
Was your vision initially just you as a consultant or a freelancer doing your own thing?
I didn't have a really great vision of what it was going to look like. I probably thought that I could go make some money as a consultant. One thing that's been really important to me as we've grown this company is that there's going to come a time where I don't want to be involved specifically in the agency work. I have a passion in educating and teaching and doing all these other things. And so what I've been really clear with my team about is that I love the marketing work. I love what we're delivering for our clients. But in the long term, I'd love to have really great leaders that are able to take that and so that I can go do some of the things that I really enjoy. And so that I can start to give back to the next era of marketers. So it's important to me that it isn't like that forever. At the time when I first started, um, to put myself back in those shoes, but I don't think I ever envisioned it as just me grinding it out, 100 hours a week. So,
Yeah, that's very, very typical. I mean, you mentioned that you've listened to a few episodes of this podcast, so you're probably aware that I talk quite extensively about the importance of founders sort of finding ways to slowly decouple and sort of assign accountability elsewhere, not just to themselves. I mean, it's so tricky, especially when when we start the business being the business ourselves, right? And it can be very, very difficult when you bring people on to like untrain them from you being the business and them just sort of being like a small piece. Like, no, actually, you want to get to the point where like all the people on your team, like you're actually more important than I am at this point. Like you are the one that the client cares about, not me.
And it's actually true. We've got, I've got agency owner friends and they say, "Oh, my team does all this." But then you look at it, it's like, "No, I think you actually did this," right? And I do that too. Don't get me wrong. I mean, everybody, our hands are in just so many different pots, and it is hard to take a step back, build systems and all that stuff. I think that's always going to be a plight of any agency owner, any service-based business owner, right? But there's a reason why this isn't the Ryan agency or the Burch agency. There's a reason why I didn't put my name on it, right? I wanted this to be not about me or my expertise, but about our ability to drive really great results in maybe more thoughtful ways than I'd seen being done, in my past life. So
So it's interesting that you said that you started without kind of a plan or a vision, but at the same time, you have had the foresight enough to know that you're trying to create something that is outside of yourself. And so, on that point, I would push back and say you actually have had vision because it's reflected in the name itself. How long has it been called the Tobie Group?
since day one, actually, there's
There
a
you
whole
go.
story. There's a whole story around that.
Let's hear it, man. Let's hear it.
Yeah, well, I'll give kind of the Cliff's Notes version, but I was traveling. I love to travel, and I love, I was at another point in my life where I didn't really know what was next. I just finished grad school, and I met this person in Croatia, whose name happened to be Toby, and she just gave me some amazing advice about what to think about next. And she said, time doesn't really matter, and money will matter, but doesn't matter immediately. What matters is what you really want to do. And it just seems like such a simple thing to say to somebody, but it was more the way that she said it. And there was a whole backstory on how she had come to that resolution in her life, and so the name was actually after this random person I met, many many years ago. And what we like to think of is that we give our clients the same guidance. Sometimes you say something in a way, or we provide direction in a way that maybe a client hadn't thought of something previously. So, but yeah, that was at a random train station in Croatia 10 years ago, and have no idea what happened to that person. Vanished, never saw that person again. And
Wow.
but the legacy is still there. So.
That was going to be my next question. I think you just answered it. Does Toby know that there's an agency named after her?
And to be honest, I have no idea if that was even her real name. So,
That's true, right?
but that's where it started, and it's a great story. So we go with it, and I do think about it a lot, right? It's like, money matters. I mean, we're all business owners, and we all have to make tough decisions around money. It does matter. Time is the most important thing, to us, right? But when it comes down to it, we really have to be clear on what our intentions are. And if you're really clear on what your intentions are, it makes those money questions a lot easier to answer. It makes those time, allocations a lot easier if you really are grounded in what your long-term intentions, are. So.
Absolutely. Ryan, that is such a cool origin story. Haven't heard anything like that before, and you strike me as, and your agency strikes me as very, very values driven. And again, that's something that I care deeply about, and when I talk to and work with other agency owners, I always say like, yes, there's the goal, there's the target at the end of the road, but the thing that's going to get us there is first defining like what guides you, what is your north star, what are those values, and really, really like embedding and imprinting those principles. And it sounds like that has served you very well, whether it's been explicit or implicit. It sounds like this conversation with this mysterious Toby person really, really set the foundation and the principles to sort of keep you sort of aligned with what the vision was going to be.
Yes, absolutely.
I think that's really, really cool. So another thing that I want to touch on is you started the agency 6 years ago. So that was kind of right when COVID was kicking off. How did that go?
It's hard to know. Right. So people will ask, this question a lot, how did COVID impact you? I think it actually, for us, it gave me a little bit of extra runway to try and test things when we were in that really early stage. I think that when COVID happened, everybody's locked in their house, and not a lot of there was no networking events, there was no distractions, there weren't things that were happening outside of my home office. And for us as a business, that allowed me just ample time to set the foundation on things, kind of get things oriented in the right way. So in a really strange way, I think it actually it just really helped our growth long term, because there was this sandbox that kind of existed that didn't exist previously without all these other distractions. Oh, I need to go to this networking thing, or I need to go try to speak at this thing, or whatever it might be. Um,
Mm.
yeah, so obviously horrible on a global stage, but for our business, in the way that we've grown, we've bootstrapped things, we haven't grown super fast, we haven't taken outside funding, we haven't, added 10 people and then tried to figure out how to pay all of them. We've just had this very deliberate, slow growth, and it was because of those early years that I think we were able to map that out.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We sort of encountered COVID in a similar way. We started the agency in 2018, so we'd been around for a little while, and COVID acted as the forcing function. Really forced us to pick a niche, pick a lane, because at that time we were kind of doing everything for everyone. We were the typical sort of junior generalist agency, and then of course all of the local service businesses completely dropped off the map, and then all that was left was, surprise, surprise, was e-commerce. So then COVID happens, and suddenly we're an e-commerce agency, and that was kind of a blessing in disguise in a way. We were absolutely terrified when that happened, being like, "What's going to happen? Are we going to be in business in 3 months?" Et cetera, et cetera. But I think at the end of COVID, our experience was like a lot of other agencies that landed on e-commerce, and a lot of e-commerce brands in general, where we're like, oh, this was actually really good for consumers, or
Yeah.
not necessarily for consumers, but for people who deal directly with consumers. And so it was the classic. I think the best example of how a constraint actually forces you to focus. And I mean, it
Absolutely.
doesn't always work out that way, but it sounds like it was beneficial for you. It was beneficial for us, and yeah.
It's interesting you say that, and so again, as the agency owner that's listening to this, you just mentioned something. Okay, so this constraint kind of pushed you in the correct direction, focus you on e-commerce. I would say one major negative is it actually did the opposite to us. So I had a friend who was running an agency, and they were so focused on entertainment and restaurants, and they had carved out a real niche for themselves there. And I saw what COVID did to their agency. So I became very fearful of niching down. And I
Mm.
have been very fearful of niching down. I've been very hesitant to pick an industry or two to really focus on, because there's this in the back of my mind. I'm always thinking of this. Okay, what happens if this? I mean, look, COVID was a cataclysmic event, right? But there's always this kind of fear, trepidation around, niching down, and so it actually had the opposite effect for us, and we're still kind of reeling for that, honestly. So it's interesting that you had that experience, because I think if I'm looking really introspectively, it affected us the opposite way.
Interesting. Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. One thought around niching. I say it interchangeably because I
Mhm.
have no idea how to say it properly. Um, one thing that I've noticed uh, in my own experience, and also working with other agency owners, is that it's not necessarily a binary decision. It's not like one day we work with everyone, and the next day we only work with like this one specific niche, or this ICP. Um, I think the best and most honest and safest way to get there is to sort of test your way there. And I also don't think that it's the smartest way to do it with just one, right? If you look at the last 3 or 4 or 5 years of client work that you've done, you'll probably see some patterns. It might not be
Yeah.
like a really really strong pattern, but you might see there's like two or three outliers where like, oh, you know what, these were a little more fun to do, or we got better results, or these were just more profitable in general. And so I like to think of the concept of like the soft niche or the soft ICP. So maybe you're still kind of positioned as generalist, but then there are certain focuses that are very obvious. Where like we work with everyone, but we work especially well with you
Right.
know niche A, niche B, and niche C, and then you have specific messaging for those, and you have specific case studies and testimonials. And I find that over time, that helps you to really, really feel safer with the direction that you take the agency. And maybe you never actually focus on one in particular, but you find that you end up being able to be more profitable, more systematized, and maybe even better priced or higher premium price for those specific ones because you just have you you have the receipts for those specific ones rather than saying like everybody, right? And I think that that's one thing that really keeps people away from doing the scary thing, and it is scary of niching down and basically turning away clients and turning away money. Is you need the concept of moderation rather than just like all or nothing. And we're in such an all or nothing society now where it's just like I'm on this side, nope, I'm on that side. Like, well, you know what?
Right.
If we're all being honest, we're all kind of somewhere in the middle, but if we have to choose, we think, I only work with one person or I work with everyone. I don't think it's black and white like that.
Can I ask you a question on that? What's the time horizon? So, yeah, I mean, you're obviously working with lots of agencies. How long should it take for an agency like ours? So, and just to give you, some, we have 3 full-time people, 10 to 20 contractors, depending on the time. How long should we think about this transition period to really niching down?
Yeah, and that's a good point, and that's going to differ agency to agency. You really have to think about, do you have enough of a sample size that you feel it's significant? So, if an agency has been around for 6 months and they've worked with 8 clients, you're probably a little early, and you probably just need to get more at bats and sort of find out, where the value is, or find those outliers. If you've been around for a year or two or three, I think at that point it's more of trying to find as big of a sample size as possible. So if you've been around for 5 years or 6 years, like you have, I would honestly go back and look at every single engagement you've had that you feel is um, significant enough that it applies today, and then try to find the outliers in that, and then maybe doing. I'm a big fan of again setting constraints, and so setting boundaries or tests. So maybe you run a soft ICP test for the next 3 months. We are going to test this messaging. We're not only going to do this, but every time a lead or a sales opportunity comes up within this soft ICP, we are going to test this specific ICP messaging. We're going to have case studies. We're going to send to the landing page, and we're going to try tailoring the offer specifically to this ICP. And then at the end of 3 months, notice did this work? Did this result in more meaningful sales conversations? If it did, then maybe let's either extend this test or let's actually now put some more resources behind it, and maybe now, rather than it being something that you sort of dance around, maybe it's actually a little bit more of a focal point on the website, and it
Sure.
becomes a
Sure.
gradual shift. Like my agency now, Social Commerce Club, we are loud and proud TikTok shop.
Okay.
That's a new platform, and when we started, like I said, when we started, we were a everything to everyone agency, like everyone, and then we niched down to direct to consumer, and we were your very classic direct to consumer or D2C growth agency where we do Meta ads and Google ads, and then we realized, now creative is the new targeting, so now we do Meta and Google, and we also handle the creative, and then everybody still needs retention, so now is Meta and Google plus creative plus retention. And then 2 years ago, TikTok Shop popped up, and my partner said, "This is going to be the next big thing. We should start testing this." And so we allocated some resources, some proactively and some reactively. Lots to talk
Sure.
about there. And we started positioning this offer as at first it was a free beta plus a percentage of revenue. We lost a lot of money on that, but we were learning. We signed like 50 clients, and we learned how TikTok Shop does not work. And then we started to get a little bit of momentum. And then we basically we were still focused on the D2C growth marketing side, but we were testing this one service because I mean, kind of classic Canadian cliche. We were seeing where the puck was going to be, and we just it was a bet that we were willing to take. And once we started to notice that this is what people wanted, our positioning shifted to Now we are a TikTok shop agency, but guess what? We're a D2C growth agency. And once you come in with TikTok shop, guess what you still need is Meta and Google
Absolutely.
and creative
So
and
those other services
retention.
didn't go away. It's like,
They
that's
didn't go away, but we started a test, and we tested and we looked at the data, and then we iterated, and eventually it became an equal service, and a slightly different ICP, and then it became our target. But
mhm,
it was easily a 12 to 18 month process. It was
yeah.
not overnight.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of agency owners that they do the inverse of what you're talking about. So they start as like let's just call it a Facebook ads shop, and they start to hit that 3, 5 year mark, and they start to wonder, okay, well, what's next? Like, how do I start adding services? Right. So the same thing
Hmm.
that you're talking about, I think can actually go the other direction. And you're right. It doesn't have to be an all in, one way or the other proposition here. And I think that's what's really like it's really scary. You've got this business, you've worked so hard to grow something, whether it's already niched down or whether you're trying to, bring it into a different direction. And it does feel a lot of times that you have to just kind of go all in or nothing because that's how we are as entrepreneurs, right? Like as an entrepreneur, it's like we've already chosen this path where okay, we're not going to go work for somebody else. We're going to go our own route. And business doesn't exactly work like that, and our
No,
agencies, our clients don't work like that, right? But we still have this, this mentality sometimes it feels like. So,
absolutely. And to your point, when we added creative to Meta and Google, it did not go well for the first couple months. And then
right.
when we added email, we had a few false starts with email because it was just bad. And we had a
Hmm.
bunch of assumptions that we did not validate before we started offering the service. And we ended up refunding a ton of money. And I'm sure that a lot of people listening to this have done the same thing with various services, which is why a lot of smart people will tell you don't just start adding a ton more services before you absolutely nail the hell out of the one service that you're offering. And generally, when you're thinking of adding additional services, it's because the service you're offering isn't working. That's the
Right.
worst time to add more services.
Right.
You should first figure out that one service that is working, or you're looking at a complete agency pivot rather than just trying to add more chaos to the existing chaos.
100%. 100%. So,
Yeah, this is kind of this is the crux of why the quote unquote simple agency business I think is actually the most complicated business to run because everything is an opportunity all the time. And so if you're doing everything, there's never a priority, and your team doesn't know what the priority is, and your client doesn't know really what you do, and then they just suddenly like 6 months after they hire you, they just start throwing requests at you that show you that they have no idea what you do whatsoever. And that's because you've never had clarity on what you do. I'll get off of my soapbox. Being that this is such a messy business, what's a standout struggle that you've had in the last 4 or 5 years, and what are some learnings that came out of that?
I think hiring's always tricky, right? So one thing that I'm really proud of is, the people that are on our team today are just unbelievable, right? And we kind of have the no jerks policy. Like we don't want to work with jerks. We don't want them on our team. We don't want to have clients that are jerks. But finding really really smart people is always a struggle, and it's always a challenge. And but once you're able to start getting some great people on your team, things have changed pretty substantially for us. So I always go back to that one. It's always just kind of about the people. It's about the team. Um, Ultimately, I'm only Ryan. I only have so much time in the day, and I've got to be able to trust that somebody's gonna be able to pick up the ball and run with it. I just went back to the American. I moved back to the ball on the analogy. So, but so I say that that's super challenging. I think for us, we're at a stage now where we're starting to think more about lead generation. We've been a referral based business for a really long time. We've been really blessed and really lucky that our clients and friends of ours have referred a lot of business to us. But we know that in order to hit the next echelon, we have to start thinking about selling, and we have to think about getting out and building more sales systems and more lead systems. So that's what the next couple of years is probably going to look like for us.
So the majority of acquisition for you right now is quite referral based.
It's 100% referral based. I'd say. I'd say that. Yeah, I'd say maybe we have 1 or 2 clients that came to us that are not referrals, but even some of those are probably a friend of a friend or, maybe 2 or 3, spots removed, whereas before when I first started, it was just 1 person making the introduction. Now we've expanded and, we're getting tertiary, referrals, I guess you could say. So
I find that that's always a great sign that you're very good at client management and very good at client relationship in general. And when we were talking before the episode started, you mentioned that you've got a few clients that have been with you for a very, very long time, which is also a good sign that you're very good at relationship management. And I would assume that referrals come from those long relationships as well.
they do, and, it's just we have a handful of clients that were with us not from day 1, but from very early on. So, and I'm gonna knock on wood because I don't wanna, jinx anything, but, um, we have clients that, started with 3 or 4 locations, and as their businesses scaled up to 25, 30 locations, we have grown with them. And there's some good that comes out of that, right? Because we're able to grow at our own pace and kind of keep up with our clients. But they're also experiencing a lot of growing pains as well. And so the way that that relationship plays out has been challenging at times, right? Like, you want to grow out ahead of your clients, but when your clients get, 100 million bucks in private equity funding, there that creates some problems, right? Like all of a sudden, we have to increase up our game. We have to do better than we were even thinking we were going to have to do because the bar gets raised. So I think that client management and where your clients are in their life cycle is something that I never thought about previously when I was just running advertising and when I was in that digital advertising world. And it's something I think about a lot as an agency owner. So I'm thinking about, okay, is this the right fit business for the work that we can do? But is it also the right fit in their growth stage? Is their growth stage aligned with what their expectations are going to be of us? And we've said no to a lot of business when those things don't match up. And if you're an agency owner listening to this, you've probably got a handful of clients where they've maybe outpaced you in their growth, and you're having a lot of trouble keeping up, or vice versa, right? There's plenty of businesses that we started with, and we just wouldn't even work with them today, because we weren't aligned in that. And that's something I never thought about or knew about before I started running the business.
Yeah, that's such a good point. It's very common to have one client, 1 or 2 clients that is they're clearly at a different stage, and you're just hoping that they don't notice. And you're like, oh, just I hope this is the biggest retainer that we have, and they're so much further along than us. And I yeah,
It's
versus
like
the
the
other
fake
side,
it till
which
you make it, right? Like there's that fake it till you make it.
mhm,
You have to have an element of that, but you start to see how the pressure that puts on some of your agency systems. And there's kind of this no go point, I think, with any client relationship.
absolutely. The more common is the flip side of, you started your agency, let's say 3 years ago, and in the first year you were just trying to work with everyone, and you were throwing out really, really lowball quotes. And it's 3 years in, and you actually understand roughly what it costs you to deliver good work now. And you realize, oh, we're actually subsidizing these clients. We're losing so much money on them, but we love the term. They're a legacy client, or we grandfathered them in, and it's supposed to make you feel better about it because you value the relationship, which you should. The relationship is the most important piece.
Absolutely.
But but this is a business, not a charity. And so it is very important to, at least on an annual basis, maybe quarterly is too aggressive for some people, but at least on an annual basis, review your client roster and decide which ones are actually taking you to that next level that you want to get to versus which ones are maybe keeping you stuck in if you're V2, if you're version 2 of your agency, these ones are keeping you stuck in version 1 because they are, what got you here won't get you there. That whole sort of like, it's kind of a cliche, but it's a cliche that I love because it is absolutely true. It's true in business. It's true in relationship and health and it's true every single place I look. Ryan, this has been such a fantastic conversation. I've really appreciated chatting with you. Where can people find out more about you and and find you online?
Yeah, so tobiegroup.com is our website, and that's TOBIEGROUP.com, and, all our socials are the same thing. So, Instagram, LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I've been using it a lot more, so that's probably the best way to get a hold of me personally. But, yeah, if you go to tobiegroup.com, you'll be able to get pointed in the right direction there.
Awesome. Thanks.